Hi, I'm Rasheed Ogunlaru, coach, speaker and author, and I want to talk for a moment about stories. Do I want to talk about famous story, or do I want to talk about your story? I think I want to talk about your story, and the thing that's really interesting, and our stories collectively, the thing about stories, and this quote came into my head a few years ago, and that's our life stories are one at the same time, part reality, part fallacy and part fantasy. So on the one hand, our life story is part reality. There are a certain sequence of events, certain events that have actually happened in your life. That bit, okay, is reality. There's a bit of it that's part fallacy. Is it the whole story? No, because there's a narrative, there's a story about yourself when you're young, when you're a kid or whatever, about your family or about the world itself that's told to you by family, by guardians, by a handful of people. And is that true? Is it the whole truth? No, it's not the whole truth. It is a perspective, it is one narrative. So it is part fallacy in that regard. It is part fallacy that's one or two people's perspective of things and around particular events, and often that they may well major highlight certain things. There might be other things that they haven't included or they've excluded or that they may well be unaware of. So in a way it's part fallacy. And also our life stories are also part fantasy, because there is that bit in which we project, isn't it, how we want people to see us. And you need to think about when you're going on that date, or you're going for the job interview, or how it is that people present themselves, their business, their product, or how big companies present things with that particular kind of sheen around it. You know, that's part of the fantasy, isn't it? And then everybody buys into that or don't buy into that particular kind of fantasy. So that's really useful, because so if you are living a life in which you've been unhappy, or you're struggling with things that have happened to you in terms of your life story, I think the first thing to do is to ask yourself that magical question that they ask in the realm of law: is it the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Is it the truth? Well, it's probably going to be there's some truth in it. Is it the whole truth? No, we've just explored it's not the whole truth. You would have to have complete knowledge of everything to know the whole truth about everything, or probably anything within that. And is it nothing but the truth? Well, no, because you don't know all of the truths within that. So that can be very, very useful if you're feeling stuck. Because if one element of that, if you don't know that whole truth, if one element and that doesn't ring true, then it's not necessarily the whole truth. And that might be why you've been wrestling with so many things that have happened to you in your life, because actually they don't really ring true. So you can bit by bit just let go of that. And that might start off with letting go of the narrative that you've been holding on to, which I can tell you now you didn't start off with. So whatever the narrative is going on in your head about your life, about life generally, it's a narrative that you have picked up along the way. You didn't start off with it. You didn't start off with it. So gently let that kind of ease. You know, I then want to move on to stories generally, because sometimes stories do help us find out a little bit about ourselves. You know, we go to the movies all the time, don't we? Or we read books all the time, and there's something about those stories, or we hear stories and songs, and they really, really connect with us and they really affect us. I mean, here's an example of one of the top self-development books of all time, The Alchemist. And isn't it interesting? It's a story of somebody who leaves their village to try and find themselves, or to try and find riches, or whatever it is, and they end up finding their own way home. And there's something about that in so many classic stories of discovery and self-discovery. Even in famous movies like The Wizard of Oz, it's essentially the same thing. Somebody, things are shaken up, and they find themselves on this particular journey. They're following this particular path. They're following this particular road. They meet these people along the way who are looking for particular things. They go off to find somebody who's going to help them find out who it is that they are. The person shows up to not being quite who it is that they are, and then they find they already have what it is that they need already. That's quite a powerful and potent kind of story, isn't it? That of finding then on that level that you already have what it is that you seek. And I think this is the powerful thing about when one is going on that journey of self-discovery. So it could be quite interesting for you to reflect on what the stories that resonate with you, and what do those stories tell you about you and who it is that you actually are, and the journey that you're on, and what is it that you're actually looking for. And is it that you're going to find it in the books, or in the movies, in the songs, or is it that you're going to find it there within your own heart? Is it that you're going to find it in somebody else's arms, or is it you're going to find it there, here within yourself? Maybe then when you find it there within yourself, then you're able to connect and really embrace all those people in your life personally, the partner, the friends, the colleagues, the boss, your own, doing your own thing, whatever it might well be for you, and the world in which you live. Maybe you're able to far more embrace that by, again, when you're able to look at your story afresh, and the stories that you hold on about them, and assuming that they're so different from you. It's very interesting in life when you move from living life from the projections in your head to the warmness of your heart, how that will change your story. And it might well change the change the end of the story and a lot of the content within the story. And that's one of the magical things, that when you do look at your story, again, because lots of stuff fall away. It certainly happened to me when, funnily enough, first thing in my own life story, ironically, stories have played a big part in my life, because I started off wanting to be an author. And I used to write stories from when I was quite a young kid, actually. And then I worked the world of press and journalism. I was a press officer, so I was writing stories for a particular organisation. And then I was a singer and performer, stories again. And I was media training, helping people put their story across. And now I'm a coach. I'm helping people to connect with their own life story and their own purpose and their own mission and so on. Stories again. So, and as a business coach, also helping people in terms of how they brand their particular stories. When I wrote my first book, The Gift of Inner Success, I think that was looking at that thing about, letting go of the story and reconnecting with the magical one's own story. I think that when I wrote my last book, Soul Trader, the one that people probably know me best for, the one you can find in bookshops and online and all the rest of it, I think that was interesting because I wanted to help people there connect to their own story, their own particular calling, within who they are and their own gifts, and to begin to find those themes and so on, and then to build an authentic business around who it is that they are and their own magic, so that they can do that. Because one of the things I noticed is that then we've already talked about how our life story is on one hand part reality, part fantasy and part fallacy, but then you've got this situation whereby, let me just turn this phone off for a minute, but then you've got this particular situation in which whereby then we don't necessarily tell our stories, isn't it? We're not telling our stories, we're not connecting with people. The number of times I've gone to businesses' websites and so on, and I find that there's nothing there, they're really absent without leave. It's really, really powerful. Funny enough, this afternoon I'm going to meet an actor who's got an extraordinary background, very challenging background originally, and he now helps lots of disaffected kids through drama, through all sorts of particular things. And it's really, really interesting in his story. Again, we're at that particular point whereby now it's about him telling his story, him building his website, him articulating that story and so on very, very powerfully. So when you get to what I'm saying here is that when you get to the point to first of all realise that your life story was that part fallacy, you realise, okay, these were the events, okay, this is the reality bit, okay, there were these certain events, that's it. Because life is just a series of events and sensations, right, that we label this, that, good, bad, right, wrong, fortuitous, unfortunate, etc. So there's the realisation of that bit. And then we think, okay, and then we're aware of the bit that's kind of fallacy, okay, that was somebody else's story, that's the story that's been told with me. Okay, so then what resonates with me is then where we're at, isn't it? So then when we explore that, then we're able to be in a position where we're able to reconnect and go out there and step into the world and be who it is that we are, in order that we're able to give the skills, talents, the magic that we have, and to share that and to contribute, right? Well, otherwise, why would we be physically here in this form? So then we're able to do that, and I guess this is where this particular person is at right now, and then he's able to tell his story. Then your story, rather than it being a burden, it becomes something that becomes very, very powerful. It becomes very powerful because you're no longer bound to it, you're no longer tied, you see the holes in it, you see this, and then it's very, very useful in terms of how it is that you share it, how it is that you use it to really affect and enable and to empower people. That's essentially what is it. And if you're watching this on a personal level, then being aware of that might well be very useful to let go of all of the hang-ups and all the noise and all of the things that people have perhaps held you back with, or you've held yourself back with, or whatever, or that has just not been helpful to you in terms of your life. If you're watching this in terms of a professional level, what are you telling your story particularly authentically in terms of who you are, in terms of your career when you're going out there? I see so many people and their profiles don't say anything about who they are, the magic, or why you do what you do. If you're a professional in your career, make sure your profile on LinkedIn or some other thing you're on, or your biography, your CV, does it say something about you and your heart, why you do what you do? So you might want to refresh and look at your story again. And then if you're a business, are you telling your story? You're telling your story authentically. If you are your business, if you are a sole trader, one person or a small business owner, then your story is all that separates you from everybody else, because there are millions of other people doing this, that and that. So how you tell your story authentically, honestly, connectedly is going to be very, very powerful. It's that that's going to draw people to you. But if you're a bigger business, what kind of stories is that you're telling people? We're sick of where people don't tell us an authentic story. So there's a message in there for you too. But I hope this has been useful, and good luck along your life journey, and be mindful about the stories that you tell yourself, and tell your story with a good heart. Take care. Bye-bye.